Now, admittedly, I'm a huge history nerd. And one of the things that's always intrigued me about history is warfare and the military. And one of the guys that I've always wanted to learn about was Robert E. Lee. Now, Robert E. Lee was a general and he led the Confederate forces during the Civil War. He's considered one of the greatest generals in world history. He's often compared to Alexander the Great, Hannibal, and Napoleon. He had more success with what little he had than those other generals. Some of the personals of him: he was born on January 19th, 1807, to a very wealthy family in Virginia. He went on to graduate from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and afterwards he was married to Mary Custis, the great-granddaughter of Martha Washington. Now he had great military honor and conquest. Soon after his marriage, the Mexican War begun, and he was assigned to Wingfield Scott's staff. And here's a picture of him during the war. Now, during the war, he was considered one of the most courageous, intelligent, and daring officers of the American Army. After the war, Lee served as superintendent at West Point until 1855, when he left to take a cavalry position in Texas. In 1859, he was ordered to put down John Brown's slave rebellion at Harper's Ferry, which amazingly he did in the lightning speed time of only 1 hour. At the beginning of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln asked Robert E. Lee to lead the Union forces into battle. However, Lee thought of himself first as a Virginian, and he refused to do so and in fact resigned his spot. He refused to take up arms against his fellow Southerners, even though he admittedly opposed secession and slavery. A quote from him that I have is, "So far from engaging in a war to perpetuate slavery, I am rejoiced that slavery is abolished. I believe it will greatly for the interest of the South." He did not fight for the South until his home state, Virginia, was invaded. Lee distinguished himself on the battlefield and took command of the force he named the Army of Northern Virginia in 1862. Lee was able to defeat George McClellan outside of Richmond in the 7 Days Battle, forcing the withdrawal of the Union away from the South. In the Second Battle of Manassas and the Battle of Chancellorsville, he was greatly outnumbered and had far fewer resources than the Union. However, with his great tactician skills, he was able to outsmart and outmaneuver and win those decisive battles. However, after the battles of Gettysburg, the tide turned against the Confederate forces. The fact that the war lasted as long as it did is a testament to Lee's ability as a general and tactician, given the overwhelming numbers and material that he faced from the North. By 1865, his numbers were too small and supplies too low. Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant. After he was defeated, however, he had a message to his soldiers to go home and to stop fighting. He was quoted as saying, "If you make as great citizens as you made great soldiers, then I will have done my job." After the war, Lee became the president of Washington College, which is today Washington Lee University. During his time, he did everything he could to ease the relationship between the North and the South. While still president of the college, Robert E. Lee passed away on October 12, 1870, in Lexington, Virginia. Today, Robert E. Lee is known as the hero in the South and a traitor in the North. He was a great man of principle who fought for a cause he believed in, but he was also a great man of God. My favorite quote from him was this: "My chief concern is to try to be a humble and earnest Christian."